Ooh, fancy.
Hey, Zandria, what's up? Hey, Mike, you mind muting your mic for a
Yeah,
bit?
that's right, because the baby's there.
You're good, you're good. Hello?
Yep.
Oh, I think my friend is having some mic issues.
That's no fun.
Hello? Hello? Uh, can you hear me though? Alright.
Sad time.
Wait, it just wasn't
Hey!
in all the way. I'm so dead.
Hey,
Hey, what's up?
hey. This is my friend Zandria, and
Hello.
Hey.
this is Eric and Mike.
Hi, Eric. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
Okay, so what is the style of this? Is it gonna be more like a lecture?
Um, yeah, I guess I'm gonna do like a little presentation real quick, and then like you guys are free to, speak out at any time and, ask me questions and whatnot, but I have like a little curriculum of things I want to explain like each week, so
Okay.
you know, it's not it's not like not like a real class or anything, but hopefully you guys can learn about how to use Blender and stuff, and
Makes
just a
sense.
little at a time each week.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Totally, and I want to see what you guys are able to make. It'll be fun.
I'm about to start taking notes.
Yeah, you should totally. No, take notes, because I actually think unless you have two monitors, you should just watch me explain and talk about it first, and then you can rewatch the video and do it yourself.
Yeah, now I'm probably gonna do that because I'm a little slow when it comes to like understanding, so it takes me like a second to like redo it, but I would probably take notes.
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry about it. All right, let me see. Let me wait for another like 5 minutes so everybody joins. Hey, Mufaso, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm gonna be starting in a bit. Thanks for being here, guys.
Yep. Nick should be hopping on soon. I hope. He did say he wanted to be a part of this as well.
Cool.
I'll see what he's up to. Give me a sec. What software do you use to stream?
It's OBS.
Okay. Is it? I know it's similar to Streamlabs. Is it any better or do you?
I don't know. It just does the job.
Oh,
Okay.
OBS. OBS is kind of uglier than Streamlabs, so I use Streamlabs.
Yeah, so do I.
I'm not even like
It,
streaming right now. I'm just like recording
no,
it.
it does the same thing. Like they both record and stream, but I just think OBS is like I don't know. It looks like it was
Its
made for
interface is
before.
just
Yeah.
outdated.
It feels more user friendly with
Yeah.
Streamlabs OBS.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll just get started in a minute and whoever joins can join.
All right.
Alright, it's 5:05, so I'll get started. So, welcome everybody thanks for being here. Um, so let me talk about myself real quick. All of you guys probably know me already, but um, I go to FIT. I'm a communications design major. I took a 3D modeling mentor class for 9 months with CG Spectrum and online art school, and I did complete that recently, so that was fun. My mentor, his name was Chris Flynn. He worked on a lot of things, including the new Matrix demo for Unreal Engine 5, which is really cool.
That is cool.
So I've been doing Blender since March 2020, around time when COVID hit and I was bored at home and I was trying to find something to do, and I thought Blender was, you know, really fun and really interesting. Um, so some of these are the works that I've done in the past 2 years. Um, and yeah, right now I'm an intern at Digital Scorpion Interactive, which some of you guys are here either run or also work for DSI, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about what we wanna what I want you guys to take away from this course. So I want to be able to teach how to make high quality 3D models the proper way, understanding how to go from an empty screen in Blender to a finished, polished model or scene, and then kind of taking what you learn here and applying it to your professional life or as a hobby, however you want to go forward with it. And I think it's important to keep in mind what you're doing because 3D is a very generalized thing, but it could get very specific. And if you're looking for a job, it's kind of there's always this argument between do you want to be a 3D generalist or a specialist? I'll go more about that in the future, but that's just something to consider what you want to do with 3D. So here's some opportunities in 3D. You have 3D modeling for animation for games and films. There's product design, product visualizations, for companies. A lot of their commercials are just renders now, and you can really even tell the difference, right? There's manufacturing and industrial design, more of the engineering side. There's fashion design, which is, relates more to the school I'm going to and people who are interested in fabrics and drapery in the 3D space. Um, you can accomplish all of these things in Blender or other specialized software for these specialized fields of 3D. And then there's architecture and there's you know, anything you can think of. It's just a virtual universe for you to make whatever you feel like. So you guys can rewatch the live streams on my YouTube channel. It's under the important links um, in the Discord. And every time I stream, if I or do this weekly thing, hopefully I don't mess up the recording thing. But yeah, you should expect to see it every week after I finish doing it. And I recommend that if you have a second monitor, you follow along from the second monitor, but I know that's a luxury that a lot of people don't have. So I actually recommend you watching me kind of explain it and do it first, and then you can rewatch it and you'll have a better understanding of it because I've kind of walked you through it a little bit, and then anything specific you don't remember, you can always refer back to me doing it. So once again, thank you guys so much for being here. Let's go into Blender. So this is a brand new scene in Blender. Everybody here? Everybody
Yes,
Yes.
doing
sir.
okay?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right, cool. So here's a brand new scene in Blender. Let me do something real quick so you guys can see what keys I'm pressing. All right. Oh, by the way, you guys need a mouse. That is something you're gonna need to use Blender. A mouse is very important. Um, so you can get a $5 mouse on Amazon or whatnot, but don't try to use a trackpad because if you have a laptop, it's gonna be really difficult to do Blender on a trackpad. So please have a mouse, and you want to download the latest version of Blender. As always, always they're always fixing bugs and adding crazy features every patch. So always great to keep it up to date. So right now, this is what Blender looks like when you start it up. It looks kind of really confusing, but right now we're only going to focus on this here, which is the viewport. So this is the viewport, and you can see these lines right here, this red one and this green one. So in Blender, there are three axes, the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. So some programs, the y and z are flipped around. Sometimes the y is the up and down, and the z is the left and right. But you can change that in Blender, but by default, this is how it is, and this is how I've been doing it. Um, so X is the red line, Y is the green line, and then Z is the up and down blue line. So right here you can see what buttons I'm pressing. Let me make it a little bigger. See. All right, that's better. So you guys can see what I'm pressing here. So when you start with a new scene, you have these things here, but we don't really need them. So we're gonna press A to select everything, and then press delete on the keyboard. So that just gets rid of everything in the scene. So A to select everything, and then delete to delete everything. By the way, hotkeys are very important. Learning the keyboard shortcuts will make you 10 times more efficient at whatever you do. And I've attached a hotkey cheat sheet in the important links section in Discord, so you can refer to it. But as you're doing it, you'll probably pick up the hotkeys, and there's also a command search option in case you forget the hotkey, and you can kind of find it. Anyways, what I'm going to do right now, this is an empty scene. I'm going to press Shift A. So Shift A brings up the add menu. And so all we're going to look at here is the mesh section. So Shift A, mesh, right? And then we're going to pick these primitives. So every 3D model you do, you want to start with a primitive, right? So we're going to get into actually modeling something in the upcoming weeks, but today I'm just going to explain to you primitives and how to edit them. So here's a cube, right? So to move around the viewport, you can hold down on the middle mouse wheel and look around, kind of pan around like this. So this is how you pan around by holding down on the middle wheel like this, like so. And then to move your perspective left and right, kind of to grab the screen and kind of grab the world and kind of go like this, you hold shift and then middle click. So middle click just pans you around the object as you're looking at it, and then holding shift lets you move your whole perspective, just like that. And then you can use your mouse to scroll in and out. So pretty self-explanatory. You'll get the feel for it once you do it, just using your middle mouse and holding shift middle mouse, and you can kind of navigate around your object. So you can see right now we have a cube here. When you left click on it, there's an orange outline and that means the object is selected. And right here is where you see your object list, or your scene, everything that's in your scene right here. So here's a cube, right? This is a default cube, and you can left click on it, and now it's orange, right? So to move this object, once you have it selected, you can press G. So when you press G, now you can move the object whichever direction you want. The problem is, if I just press G and I kind of click it off somewhere, it moves it from the perspective that I'm looking at it from. So here I'm gonna go into the front view, right? So here's the cube, I'm clicking on it, it's highlighted orange, that means this is selected. I'm gonna press G. So right now it's only moving along the front perspective because I was looking at it from the very front. So another important hotkey to learn, it's right next to the 1 key on your keyboard, and it's the tilde key. So, you have the 1 key on your keyboard, and then to the left of the 1 key is the tilde key. So when you hold it down, you can go into these perspectives. There's top, down, left, right, front, back, and then from the camera, and then from what you've selected. So, how you can go from you can go to the left side of the cube, you can go to the back side of the cube, you can go to the right side of the cube, the bottom of the cube, the top of the cube. And then you can always snap out of this by just holding middle click and then, moving back out of it. So I'm going to look at it from the front, back to the perspective view. So this is perspective view where you can just look around, and orthographic view is top, down, left, right. So this is important for when you're moving objects, right? So if I only want to move it along the front, I can just press G and I can move it like this. If I just want to move it, if I go to the top view, then this is how it's going to move. Now, to edit the object itself, hold on. Before we do that, when you press G and you just want to snap it along an axis, you can just press X, Y, or Z, and it'll snap it to that axis, and you can move it along that direction. So select the object, left click, G, and then X. Now we're moving it along the X axis, and then Y, we're moving it along the Y axis, and then Z along the Z axis. And you can pick how far you want it. So if I press G to move, Z for the Z axis, and then I type in a number, you see at the top left right here, there's a number here that's telling you how far you're moving it along the Z axis. So G to move, Z for Z axis, and then 10 for 10 meters, and then I've effectively moved it 10 meters along the Z axis. So you can play around with it and get a feel for it. You can also hold control and it'll snap to this grid here as you're moving it. So G to move along the X axis, and then holding control and dragging, you can snap it to the grid. Alright. Now, when you're selecting and you see this orange outline here, you're in object mode. So at the top left, it says object mode, right? Now, right now you cannot edit this cube itself. You're just selecting it as a whole object and nothing else. So you can move it, kind of like stage it however you like. But if you want to edit it, you have to go into edit mode. So you select the object with left click and it's highlighted orange. Now you're going to press tab. So pressing tab switches it from edit mode to object mode and object mode to edit mode. So if I'm going to press tab back and forth, you can see the difference. So now there isn't an orange outline just around the object. You can see that there are now these dots here, and it looks a little different, right? So there are 3 things you can select on a mesh. So this is a mesh, right? When we added this in, it was from the mesh menu. So first, if you press while you're in edit mode, if you press 1 on your keyboard, well, I'm gonna click off to deselect everything. So now this is deselected. If you press 1, it is in the vertices selection mode. So vertices are these dots where edges meet, right? So this face right here at the top has 4 vertices. This one, this one, this one, and this one. And I'm holding shift and clicking to kind of select them more than one of them. But if you just click on them individually, you're going to select them individually. You can also hold shift and then dragging a box, you can select all of them at once. Now, those are the vertices. Edges, if you press 2 in edit mode, you can select these edges now. So, same idea. There's 4 edges to a face, right? Now you're selecting the edges instead. And then if you press 3, this is now the face selection. So you can select the whole face. You can hold shift to select multiple faces, and you can press control to deselect the face. So, you know, basic selecting and deselecting. Shift, click, selects, adds selection, and then control, click, gets rid of the selection. Okay. So now what can we do with this? Well, we can pretty much make anything from these 3 points of selection out of with this cube, right? So if I want to kind of move these vertices, right? Now I'm going to select all of them first. I'm going to press G, and now, oh, G, and now I can move them whichever direction I would like. So, you know, if I just want to make this into a tall pillar, I can just press G to move, oops, G to move, just G once, and then Z for the Z axis, and now you can move it up or down however much you'd like. And then this could become, you know, a little building for your scene. Very basic, primitive modeling. So let's try that one more time. So right now we're in object mode. You can see it at the top left, and when you select things, there's an orange outline. And we press tab, it goes into edit mode. So your last selection is saved in edit mode. So, you know, if I select this vertices, last time I selected it in edit mode, I can move this cube wherever I'd like and still go back into edit mode, and it'll have the same selection, which is very convenient. And Control Z to undo, standard, and then Control Shift Z to redo. Pretty standard undo and redo buttons. So now I'm going to explain some other primitives to you. So I'm going to hold tilde and go into the front view. So now I'm looking at the front of the cube. So Shift A brings up your add menu. You can go to mesh, and then let's look at some of these other primitives. I'll just, oops, what did I do? All right, Shift A. All right. All right, cool. So these are all the primitives that Blender gives you. Beside the monkey, you can also do the monkey too. There's a monkey primitive. Very useful actually. Her name is Suzanne, officially coined by Blender. So the most basic primitive you have is the plane. So this is just a single face, 4 vertices, 4 edges, and a single face, right? So then you have the cube, which has 6 faces that are all connected. So then you have this, which is a UV sphere. So UV sphere, so this isn't highlighted in object mode. If I press tab, you can go into edit mode and kind of see how it's kind of put together, right? So this is a sphere, this is a UV sphere, and it's really useful for, you know, a base for a head or anything spherical that has evenly spaced geometry. So that's important, and I'll discuss that more later on. Here is an icosphere. So the difference is this is made of triangles instead of squares. This is also another important thing that I will mention later on. But triangles and squares make up every single mesh. And if it even if you have something that isn't broken up into triangles or squares, when you bring it into a game engine, if you're doing 3D modeling for games, then it will convert it automatically, triangulate it. And even if you did have a for like a polygon mesh, it will cut this diagonally in half, and it'll become two triangles. So this is what happens when you um, import any mesh into a game engine, right? And so this is useful for other cases where we have triangles here instead of the square layouts. And here we have a cylinder. So cylinder is just a bunch of faces around, and then the top face is joined together by this loop here. So you see all these um, vertices, these like edges, these individual edges. If you hold Alt and then click on the edge, you can select the whole edge. And same thing with these. If you one second. Okay, so if you go into face mode with 3, right, and then you hold Alt and you click along the seam, you can select all these faces in a circle. So it's very easy to select things. You just hold Alt and you can kind of select it, and then sometimes if you can't select it, you might have to go into face or vertex mode, and then it'll let you select it. So Alt lets you select the edge loop. So this is called an edge loop because it's a closed loop full of edges. You'll most likely see them in round shapes. You have so this is basically only made of edge loops. You have all these edge loops here, and you can always like move them around with G and, manipulate it however you'd like. So here's a cone, like a cylinder, except all the vertices just kind of meet in the middle. Here's a torus. If you guys did the Blender donut tutorial or at least started on it, this is like the shape that you start with, and then you have the monkey, which is more for like testing purposes and like, not really practical for any case. Anyways, these are the basic primitives, and everything you do is pretty much going to be done from these shapes. So now I'm going to talk about file management because it's really important. So when you start working on a scene, it's very important that you save, sooner than later. So Control S, you're going to save, right? Now I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it Blender Tutorials, right? So in here, I like to make another folder that's all my .blend files. So this is where all my files are gonna go. Or, you can just name this projects or whatever you want to name it, and then make another subfolder for the project you're working on right now. So I'm gonna call this one primitives, right? And then I'm gonna go into this folder and then name it primitives and save. So now let's go to save as. So now I have the folder itself, a folder for all your projects, and then each individual project. So then like all your projects will be laid out in folders. And the reason I have a separate folder like this is because I usually like to have, another folder for renders or, you know, anything else. It's a lot easier to access than having to go um, so far into your project files in order to find what you need. So I kind of like to break it up like this. Have the main project files in here, and then any renders or any add-ons I do, anything I need to access easier, I just kind of have it export it into one of these folders. So file management is another important thing to do. Everybody okay now? Right now?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Any questions?
No, it seems pretty straightforward so far.
All right, awesome. All right, so let's try to make something. So the first thing I thought of that I would make is an axe. So an axe is pretty simple, right? It's basically two pieces, the blade and the handle, right? So how will we accomplish that with just primitives, right? So I'm gonna start. So let's look at some pictures of axes first. Um, is this how you spell it? Right, okay, here we go. So, looking at a picture of this, could you tell me what primitive you would start with if you had to make this handle? Out of, oh, out of all these primitives, right?
It'd be a cylinder.
Very good. So, looking at this, if you're to do this handle, you would start with the cylinder. Alright, so let me just hide all these, and let me bring this to the center so it's a little easier to work with. So, let's work with this now. So, we have the cylinder here, right? And we wanna make it into this handle. And you know what? I'm gonna download this. I'm gonna download this image real quick. Downloads. Here we go. Save. And then I'm gonna import it into my Blender scene. So if you want to import an image, you can do Shift A, go to Image, and then Reference or Background. Reference lets you adjust the opacity, so it works well. So you can go to Desktop. Oh no, I went to Downloads, and then it should be, find it. What is it called? FE9. Okay, FE9. Here we go. So I'm gonna load this in. So now I have a reference image. The problem is it always gets imported in the middle of your in the origin. So the origin is where the X and Y axis and the world and the Z axis lines up. So this is your world origin. So this is where you're gonna be. So we're just gonna press G, Y, move it back a little bit, but from the front view, if we hold tilde and then go to front, you can still see it from the front, right? So now we have this cylinder here. What we want to do is line it up to this in the back. So you could rotate this cylinder with R. So okay, before I get into that, so there are three different transforms you can do, right? There's move with G, right? There's R, which is rotate. Now you can rotate your object. Now, rotating it like this rotates it from your perspective. It's not necessarily a good practice. You should not be rotating things from your perspective. You should be rotating them along an axis. So if I want to rotate it along the y-axis, this green one right here, I press R, Y, and now I can rotate it, snap to the y-axis, right? And I could do R, X, and then rotate it this way instead, or then R, Z, and I rotate it from top to bottom. And then same concept, but now I want to make it bigger or smaller. So S for scale. You press S for scale, and then you can do scale along the x-axis. You can kind of pull it like this. Scale S to scale, Y for y-axis. You can pull it out like this way. And you can do S for scale, Z for z-axis, and make it longer vertically. So to refresh, G to move, G is one of your transforms, X, Y, Z. You have rotate with R, X, Y, Z, and then you have S to scale, also X, Y, Z. But you can also just scale it like this, and it'll scale uniformly, which is great to use for scaling. Another thing is if you press R to rotate, instead of asking you for a number for how much you want to rotate it, it asks you for an angle of rotation. So if I do R for rotate, Y for y-axis, and then 90, right? Oh, R, Y, 90. It rotates it along the y-axis 90 degrees. Same thing, R, Z, 180. So this rotates it. You couldn't see it because it looks the same on the other side, but R, Z, and then you can see at the top left there's a number there, that's the degree, so how many degrees I'm rotating it. And then RX, you can do 90 degrees, 45 degrees, however you want to rotate or move your object.
How
Yeah.
how would you rotate it less than a degree?
You can do decimal points, like 0.1 degree.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're allowed
Cool.
to, you can do decimal points. You can do a lot with this. So let's look back at our reference photo, and I'm gonna snap it to the front view, right? I want to build this from the front. So I'm gonna select my image, and okay. So right now this cylinder is blocking my view of the image, right? When you're modeling, that's gonna be an issue. You can't see what your reference is, right? How you kind of want to line up your model to your reference. So what you want to go do is go into wireframe mode. So if you hold Z, there are these four modes here. There's solid, material preview, wireframe, and rendered. So right now we're just gonna go from solid, holding Z. All right, still holding Z. You can move your mouse up, down, left, right. So I'm gonna go to left and then let go. So Z, Z, drag, let go. Z, drag, let go. Right. So also, you can do this with Shift Z. So Shift Z does the same thing. It takes you into wireframe mode, right? So I'm gonna do Shift Z, and now I can see through my solid at my reference, right? Now I want this to be the any part of the handle. It doesn't really matter that much. So I'm gonna rotate my image with R, pressing R. I'm gonna just rotate it like this, right? And then and since my cylinder is this large, you can also make the cylinder smaller, but that will make your object just have really small size. So right now, let's see how large this is. So if we go into uh, edit mode, I think we can, oh, here we go. So right now it's 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters, right? So this is a 6-foot cylinder right now, basically, right? So it doesn't have to be 6 feet, maybe like, um, so if I I can change each one of these just to 1, and now it's 1 meters tall. So I know that's how this how long this would be. So I can take my image and I can scale it down to fit within this cylinder, right? Just so I know it's exactly 3 meters long. And now knowing that that's how long it is, I could just scale it. I could scale it inward, right? Scale S and then X, right? Or you can just scale it like this and have it line up like this, right? So now we know that this is 3 meters tall. We can start like this and build it out. So it doesn't matter how far the reference is, it still looks the same no matter how far you are from it. Um, so back to the front view, I've got this chunk of the handle here, right? Now I want to kind of stretch it out, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press S and then Z. And I'm just gonna kind of pull it out a little bit, right? So let me just going back and forth between solid view mode. That looks alright. Alright, so if you wanna extrude, so I wanna be able to make this kind of go this way instead of having to go straight down, right? You want it to kind of follow this curve, right? So what you want to do is press E to extrude. So E lets you extrude out a face. So you have to have a face selected. So let's see. So this is an object mode. You're gonna press Tab and then you press 3, and then now you can select these faces, right? So you want to have a face selected, and then press E to extrude, and then you can pull it out however much you want, and also you can choose which vertices you want to, which axis you want to extrude to. So I'm gonna press Z because I just want it straight down for now. So let me go back to my front view. So just undid that, so I can press um, E to extrude, and I'm just gonna pull it straight down. And then what I'm gonna do, go into wireframe mode, and then press G to move, and then X for the x-axis, and then sorry, oh, G to move, X for the x-axis, and then just move it over. And then I can press S to scale it inward. So I'm kind of lining it up exactly to the reference art, right? So now I'm still in edit mode. So this is kind of off a little bit and it's a little too large. So right now, if you see the dots, that means you're in face mode. If you press 1 and you see these dots, this is vertices mode, and then you press 2 and you see just lines, that means it's edge mode. So you can always go 1, 2, 3 and switch between them. Right now I'm going to press 1, click and drag, select just these vertices. I'm just press G and then X and then move it over and then S to scale and bring it in. Right, so it's kind of following the curve already. Now, if there's a disconnect like this, you want to just bring it down a little bit so that it fits, and then do the same thing again where you're in edit mode and you press 3. You can select the face. You can also do this in X-ray mode, but it's a little hard to tell what is a face and what is an edge. So I'm selecting the top of this, right, going back into front view, and then going back into X-ray mode, and I'm going to press E to extrude. Right, same thing we did for the bottom, E to extrude, and then S to scale, so make it a little bigger, and then G, and then by pressing G I can kind of move it around freely and just line it up to the reference art. So G and S, S to scale, G to move, you know, very basic. You'll get the hang of it really quickly, and then say you want to add another edge here, because you want it to kind of follow this curve better, right? To do that, you're gonna have to go into edit mode, right? And when you're in edit mode and you're in the mesh selection, you can just press Control R. So when you press Control R, it doesn't let you kind of move it or anything, right? So you have to do Control R, right? Pick the section that you want it to be split in half. So it splits it in half right now. And all you got to do is click it, and then now you can move it. So to repeat, um, so now I'm in vertex mode. It doesn't matter which mode you're in, you'll still be able to do this. So Control R to add an edge loop. Won't let you move it until you click, and then click again wherever you'd like it, right? So wherever I think this curve meets in the middle is okay. And now I've added an extra edge to this cylinder, and I can press S to scale, bring it in a little bit, G to move. Um, so if the command doesn't work the way it's supposed to, if you, because it does something when you press it twice. It does something different when you press it twice. You can just press escape and it'll cancel the command, right? So if I'm pressing G right now and I just press escape, it cancels it, right? So pressing G twice lets you move it along the edge. So this is called an edge slide. So pressing G twice, you can now slide the loop up and down it and then make it smaller, bigger, however you want to edit it. But this seems okay for now. So, you quickly do the rest of this. Just gonna speed through it. So, you can be pretty quick with this. As long as it follows the curve decently well, do a little rotating just to have it line up as best as you can to this concept art. Doesn't have to be perfect, just as long as it's relatively fitting how you want it to look, should be fine. So I'll say that's good enough for now. And look at that, we've got a handle. Okay, let's do this last part. So here's another thing you can do. You can press E and extrude, right? You want to go straight up, right? And since this comes to the top, we're just gonna bring it to the top. Now, you can do the same thing again here, and so there's like a little curve here at the bottom. So you can do Control R to add an edge loop, click, and then click again wherever you want it. So it looks like it gets skinny here, and then I'm gonna select this chunk right here, and then just scale it inward like this, right? And then maybe move it up a little bit. So this is at like a little tilted perspective, but we'll just imagine that this is what it'll approximately look like from the front perspective. And now we have a little handle here. So you see these ugly lines here? We don't want to look at these lines, right? So we're gonna right click and we're gonna press shade smooth. So that smooths out all the lines that are there. But now we have these issue with the shading. So this is shading where you see it's smooth, right? But you see the darkness and the light, right? There's a there's an issue with the shading because we don't want this part to be smooth because on the actual object, this part is a rough 90-degree bend, right? But when we smooth it, it smooths out the whole thing, and we can't tell that there's a curve, there's a like a break there. So over here we have a lot of buttons here, but we're going to we're just gonna shade smooth, right? So you have the object like this. You're gonna click on it. You're gonna right click and then shade smooth, and then come down here to this green thing, which is the vertices groups. Um, so don't worry about that too much. We're gonna go to normals, and then we're going to press auto smooth. So what that does is anything 30 degrees and below, it would be shaded smooth. So you see these faces between this one and this one is definitely um, larger than 30 degrees or smaller than 30 degrees. So when you shade smooth, it doesn't. So this is a huge break. So it will not smooth it. But you can turn this up, and you can see that like when it hits 90 degrees, as soon as it hits 90 degrees, it goes smooth again. So you don't want that. You want it to be 30 degrees is fine as long as the object is smooth. So we see there's like a little bit of a you can still see the lines here, so we might have to turn it up a bit, right? Until the lines go away. There we go. But not too much so that it creates weird artifacts. Not a big deal right now. It's just a just something to keep in mind and how to keep your mesh good looking. And so now we have this handle here. We can it's a little too round, so what I'm going to do is press S to scale and then press Y, and I'm going to just squish it inward, right? Just like this. So kind of this is how like the profile, you kind of have to do a little thinking with the concept art that you're given on because it's not going to give you the perfect perspective every time, right? But looking at pictures of axes, you can kind of tell that it gets skinnier in the middle and it's kind of flatter on the sides. So, you know, by scaling it along the y-axis, you can kind of flatten it sideways. Now we're going to do the blade, right? So, if you guys are still with me, what primitive would you pick to um, create this blade part here?
Would a cube work, maybe?
Very good, Eric. Once again, a cube is the
Yeah.
correct answer.
Woo.
All right. So, all right, let me make
Wait,
this.
but also, wouldn't you need like another shape to make the hole inside?
Um, well, yes, but theoretically, you don't need to make a hole inside. You can just kind of put the object here, and I mean, you could do the hole, and it would just be a little more complicated. Um, but I'll discuss that in the future because there's something called Booleans, which cuts out, which makes a cut from one object to another. So you see how these are intersecting right now? If I do a Boolean operation, it'll cut straight into the cube and it'll leave the a hole where this object is. But that's
Oh,
a
okay, so yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. So like yeah. So but that's a little further down the road. So I'm gonna select my handle right here and then press H to hide it. But I can see it here, and I'm gonna just double click on it and name it handle, just so it is a little more organized. So with this eye icon, you can press it on and off, and you can see which objects are hidden or shown. So now we have a cube here. Same thing. I'm gonna go into X-ray or wireframe mode so that I can see the object itself, and I'm gonna line it up to wherever I can. So this is the top part of the axe. So the top part of the axe is gonna kind of be here. So I'm gonna just approximately line it up. You know, can't it's not always perfect, and usually hammer it out at the end. So I'm gonna go into edit mode by pressing tab, pressing 1 for vertices. I'm gonna drag and select these, and then I'm just gonna line it up like this. You know, I'm gonna press S and then Z to just scale it vertically, and then add another loop cut in the middle, and then kind of expand it out a little bit. So I'm just gonna try to line it up to this line right here, but a little higher because it's kind of tilted, so kind of have to consider the angling of it. So there's another kind of little bend here, so just gonna move it over like this. Just trying to follow the curvature of the piece of reference that you're using. So I can press 3. If I press 3, I'm going to face selection. I'm just going to click and drag this face, and I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to bring it out all the way here. Press S for scale, Z for Z-axis, and pull it out like this, and then line it up with G. And then there's a little curve at the end, so I'm just going to do it again, and then scale it inward like so. And so when we get out of object mode, or when we get out of edit mode, we get this chunk here. So I'm gonna name this axe head, right? It's a little too wide right now, so I'm gonna press S for scale and then Y for the Y-axis, and then just squish it inward, right? So right here, the back part sticks out more than the front part, right? So I'm going to go back into edit mode with tab. I'm going to press 3 for face selection. I'm just going to select these. I'm going to select this face, and then what I'm going to do is press S to scale, and then along the Y axis. So it'll scale them both ways, and you just drag, and it'll work perfectly fine. So once again, I'm selecting these faces, and these faces are connected by an edge to these two faces. So when you kind of pull them out, it kind of stays with it. So S to scale, Y for the Y-axis, and I'm going to pull them apart like so, right? Now, I'm also going to shade smooth, right-click, shade smooth, auto smooth, and you can play around with this value, see what looks good. You know, sometimes it looks a little wonky. But you know, not a huge concern right now. It's just to make your models look a little better and not as blocky. I'm gonna bring the handle back, and we can see there's a bit of a disconnect, and maybe you can edit it and make it a little bigger, kind of so that it can fit a little better. So you don't always have to follow the reference one to one. You can always play around with it. It's your 3D models. You can make it however you'd like. So I feel like this is missing a little detail, so I'm just gonna press G twice. So once I've added an edge loop, if I press 2 for edge while in edit mode, if I hold Alt and then click on the edge, I can select the entire edge or just click and drag them, right? So, but the problem is the top and bottom one are not selected if you just go like this. So you have to make sure you kind of select the entire thing from outside its bounds, so that you can select the entire edge loop and then press G. So G lets you move it, but if you press G again, it lets you keep it along the edge as an edge slide. So pressing G once lets you move it however you'd like. Pressing G twice lets you slide it along the edge that it's on. So I'm gonna go back to the front, press G twice, and then scale it inward a little bit to give it a bit more of a curve. That's looking pretty good. I guess I can select these edges and then scale them inward with S and Y. So S to scale, Y for the Y-axis, and kind of pull them in a little bit. And then maybe this one I can pull it a little outward, just so it has a little bit of what's happening over here at the tip. Alright, so really basic, we've got an axe, and it's looking pretty good right now. Let's try to fix this shading a bit. You can also, instead of doing this, you can go on with your mesh, you can shade smooth, don't have auto normals on, but if you go into edit mode, you can select and then holding Alt, you can select these edges and right click, you can go to mark sharp. So when you mark sharp, it and hold on 1 second. It should do it. Mark sharp. Hmm. Okay, so you do have to have auto smoothing on. My bad. So with auto smoothing on, you can select the parts that you want to be sharp, along kind of like along the perimeter of the object, and you can kind of just go around and then right click and mark sharp, and when it's marked sharp, you can turn this value up as much as you want, and but those things will stay sharp and everything else will be smooth. So it's important for when you're making models. You don't want these really jagged edges like this. This is for low poly style, which is something else you can do. But for a proper 3D model, if you're making this for like an axe company like George Foreman or something, you want it to be high quality and be smooth and have the details that it needs. So really basic model. Anybody have any questions?
No, not yet.
Awesome.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
Cool. All right. So there's 5 minutes before the end of it, and what I want you guys to do, if you're so inclined, is to make a 3D object, very basic one, anything you want, and I want you to post it in the Discord underneath, um, showcase, feedback, or help, whichever one, probably under showcase, right? Or if you want feedback from me, or anybody else, you can put it in feedback. But yeah, I want you guys to make something, anything you want, as simple as it could be. You can literally just mash primitives together if you'd like, but with what I've discussed today, I would love to see what you guys come up with. Spend 5-10 minutes doing it, just to get a feel for Blender, the interface, and editing primitives. All right. So
Cool.
I think that'll be it for me today. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope to see you guys next week. You can always rewatch the stream on my YouTube channel. It's under the important links section on the Discord. Um, and yeah, I hope I get to see some cool things you guys make next week.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how far you go with this.
I have a 7-week curriculum written out so far, but
Oh wow, okay. No,
yeah.
that's
So
cool.
it'll be for at least I'll have at least 6 more. So if you guys want to join, you can join. Um, and yeah, have a good rest of your week. Uh, I'll be here next week, same time. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thank
I mean, I
you.
think it's like I know a little bit of Blender, but when like watching you do all this, like make this X, like it's like you're doing it, like you have like different way of doing things, sort of. So like no, like seeing other people do it differently, it kind of you know helps you kind of like be better at like the things that you do. I don't know if I'm making any sense,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah,
no,
Mhm.
thank you.
definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I never thought about using reference images when creating something.
Dude,
Yeah,
reference
same.
images is everything in creating something.
Well,
Yeah,
there you
reference
go.
is very
Learn something.
important. Yeah, so excited to see what you guys make. You're free to go. Have a good rest of good rest of the day and week.
Thanks, Genshin.
Yeah. All right. Later.
Oh yeah.